Bear, you're off the tee box first, but you're going to a big game as well, an island game, as they say, on Sunday night. Notre Dame, Florida State, what do you got?
Yeah, I like the Irish minus the 7.5 here. I think if you look at this Florida State team the last few years, they are the bottom third of the Power Five in terms of games that they've won. I think Mike Norvell is still trying to shape this roster, and defensively especially. This is a team that has struggled mightily, giving up a ton of points, over 40 points in numerous games last year. Difficulty stopping the run, difficulty stopping the pass, and I think with a running back like Kyron Williams, a dynamic player, I think Jack Cohen is a player at Notre Dame who I think is going to surprise people. I think people forget that he helped lead Wisconsin to a Rose Bowl as a freshman a couple of years ago. I think this number has come down. I think Florida State might have been an attractive home dog to some people, but I like the Irish to go down to Tallahassee with that new defensive coordinator, Marcus Freeman, to get out the win.
All right, should be a great atmosphere at the Doak with fans, but you say the Irish, with obviously having lost a lot of guys, including Ian Book, will get it done minus the 7.5. Greg, you're going to Atlanta, Clemson, Georgia, the game of the week for sure. Tigers laying 3 right now against the Bulldogs. Who do you like?
Well, if everything were equal and both teams were at 100%, I would go and take the Georgia Bulldogs. However, that's not currently the case. Georgia in the spring lost their number 1 wide receiver, George Pickens, to an ACL tear. His availability is to be determined. Their best pickup in the offseason was Eric Gilbert, a transfer, a 5-star transfer, tight end wide receiver hybrid that is no longer with the team. They also have another tight end that's out 6 to 8 with a foot injury. They have a defensive back that's out 6 to 8 with a foot injury. And if that's not enough, their center's trying to learn how to snap left-handed because he broke his hand, and he's going to be going against the Clemson defensive line with Brian Brzee, who's a future first-round pick. I right now don't feel very good about the momentum that Georgia's been able to create in the preseason. I think Clemson's had a more solid camp and has traditionally performed much better in games like this. So I'm going to take Clemson. I'm going to lay the 3 and like the fact that it's actually coming back to me a little bit. It was at 3.5. Now I get that football number on the push. I think there's good value there on the Tigers.
Yeah, that number has come down, but you're right. The Bulldogs just ravaged with injuries, and you certainly laid it out perfectly there. Bear, you're going to the Big Ten here. Indiana and Iowa. This number's come down a little bit throughout the summer. Iowa 3.5-point favorites over the Hoosiers. What do you got?
I like Iowa in this game. I think this is a very difficult opener for Indiana, who had basically everything go right in a magical season last year. I worry about how some of those turnover numbers and some of those red zone defensive turnover touchdown percentage numbers will translate and carry over to this year, especially when you lose a player like Jamar Johnson, who was one of the better safeties, and defensive coordinator Kane Womack. I think people forget Iowa last year was a couple of games which they led by blowing basically the Purdue game and the Northwestern game from being an undefeated team. I think this is a Kirk Ferentz type of team where you just bring in the next win. They'll really be able to replace those guys on the defensive line and the offensive line. And this is what Kirk Ferentz's program has been built on. And I think if you look as well, if you go back since 2015 when Iowa made that run to the Big Ten championship game, they've been a favorite of fewer than 6 points 16 times. They've won 15 of them outright and covered a majority of them. So these are the types of games where people feel like Iowa is threatened and in jeopardy of losing as a small favorite, but typically they're the right side.
All right, let's keep it in the Big Ten. Greg, Michigan State, a couple of years ago, undefeated, went to the college football playoff, but it's a different era right now in East Lansing. They're a 3-point dog at Northwestern. What do you got?
Well, I wish very much that I had this number still hovering around 4, because that's where it was about 24 hours ago. Unfortunately, it's moving, but in a game right now that's probably going to have some points at a premium, I still like taking the points in this environment. Let's start with Northwestern. Lost a lot of pieces last year. And by the way, their one loss in the regular season last year was to the Michigan State Spartans. They've actually struggled with Sparty the last couple years. For whatever reason, this has just been a difficult matchup for Northwestern. Let's move now over to the Spartans. It's a group that has really gone to the transfer portal, try to improve their athleticism at a bunch of different spots. They might even have a grad transfer at quarterback in Russo from Temple, who has at times played at a pretty high level. It could also be Peyton Thorne as well. Depends on who ends up winning that job and who Mel Tucker ends up going with. But I'm going to lean towards the team with a slight edge in athleticism and a slight edge in returning productivity offensively in a game in which points will likely be at a premium. I'll take them. If the number's still at 3, I'll buy it up so I can get that football number, get 3.5. I think it's worth the extra price at that point.
Yeah, points should really be at a premium in that one. Bear, another Big Ten game. Illinois won the opener last week as a home dog. Now they get UTSA Roadrunners, and they're laying 5.5. Are you going to back the Illini here?
No, I'm not. And I would like it at 6, like Greg alluded to with football number before. There might be some sixes out there. You might be able to buy it up to 6. But this is a dangerous game for Illinois because while it was great to see the Illini come out in Brett Bielema's first game and win, a lot of that was more bad Nebraska, implosions, penalties, turnovers, poor coaching and play calling. A lot of it just didn't make sense. Now you get an Illinois team, everybody's patting them on the back. They won their game as an opener. Could be a different season. Now you get UTSA, one of the better group of 5 teams, a physical game a team who can run the football. This is a very, very dangerous game for Illinois. I like UTSA to keep this game close.
All right, we're keeping it with another Big Ten team. This is a matchup of Big Ten schools. And Greg, you're going to a total 63.5, fairly high here. How are you approaching this one?
Well, I told you I was going to give you sharp plays, Doug. So here's an example of that. 44% of the tickets are on the over, and 82% of the money are on the over. And it's not like this is just an early reset to the amount of tickets that have been punched. No, we're talking about 8,500 tickets that have been placed on this game, and yet to have that level of discrepancy on the over versus the under, and yet the line has moved from 65 all the way down to 63.5, that's got my alarm going off. It makes me think something's up. I like the points. I like the over in this one. Defense has struggled first week of the season to begin with. Ohio State averaged almost 42 points a game last year. Minnesota averaged almost 27 points a game last year, both of which had their fair share of struggles defensively. And Minnesota would be the team that you think, can they score? They can. That's a veteran quarterback, a veteran running back, and decent wide receivers on the outside with 5 seniors along the offensive line. So I like the offenses in both on this one, and I have question marks on both defenses, so I like the over at 63.5.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.